Fasten your seatbelts for the realest Eagles and Sixers YouTuber! One who plays no clickbait and gets to the point! The myth, the legend, Nicky Steez! On the My Channel, you know the deal. Yo, boy, always keeps things real. I'm simply statue think they slate, dropping unrealistic mad 2K takes for the clip. Even though cats like that get views closer to the milli, never hear me preach Subban to Philly. Before you watch the Eagles all the way through the early 22, authentic talk, forget what others do. Come to my channel, you know the deal. Yo, boy, always keeps things real. The 24/7, 365 way. Sports content for the reals that fill the day.
Heard what Giannis says. He says, hey, I think what we should do is, let's say, the world take on the American players in the NBA. Kind of somewhat sort of. What are you doing in the NHL? What do you think?
Well, listen, hockey's a different sport from the NBA. You can't compare the cultures because of the way the game is played. You can step on an NBA floor and go through the emotions. You can't do that in hockey. You can't. Like, the culture of our sport, you have to play it with passion. You have to be willing to fight. You have to be willing to leave it on the ice. That's what fans are investing in. So for us, when we charge $1,500 for a ticket to come to Fortnite, fans know what they're getting. Cale Makar, the best defenseman in the world, wasn't in the lineup for this game. This was the most viewed game that we've had in years. And you see it, it's because it's not just based on the skill and talent. It's based on the pride, honor, playing for the guy next to you. I got a question for the NBA players. What the hell are you playing for? What are you playing for? It's not about the money. You make all the money. What, you're injured? Well, there's a difference between being hurt and injured. Are you hurt or are you injured? There's a difference. In hockey, we play hurt. We play injured. That is the culture of the sport. It's always been that way. So you want to talk about the business, the CBA, fans get all of that. But what do fans resonate with? They resonate with what's real. You got to fight sometimes for your country. You got to compete. You got to go out there and leave it on the ice because those people are paying the price of admission. So fans know whether our stars are on the ice or not, they're getting their money's worth. The NBA has that issue that they got to work on. You got to create a better culture for your players. It starts with the leaders. This issue, there was no issue when Jordan was around. There was no issue when Kobe was around. There's no issue when Sidney Crosby's around. There's no issue when Wayne Gretzky was around because those are true leaders. They lead by example. Sidney Crosby, Hockey Canada, those players, both Canada and U.S., it was the players that did that for the Four Nations. It's not the league. The league set it up, but the players went out there and decided and said, you know what, boys? We're all in. When is the NBA going to do that? Because, you know, I haven't sat down and watched the NBA consistently since Kobe. Since Kobe has died, I have not sat down and watched the NBA consistently. I love basketball. Love the players. I think LeBron's great. I think KD's great. Steph Curry, love watching them. But you got to be on the court. You got to be there, and when you're there, you got to go all in. The fans got to feel that they're getting their money's worth. And right now, there's a big difference between what the NHL's doing with those events and what the NBA is doing. Four Nations works because...
Those are PK Subban's comments on... in reaction to the All-Star Week, or PK Subban, excuse me, his reaction in response to players missing games, fresh off LeBron saying that he was going to be part of the All-Star game, then deciding at the last minute not to play. And, you know, some people took offense to it. Blaze Radio on the Pick and Roll podcast, episode 110 on Wednesday, just 2 days ago, said it robbed Norman Powell or Domantas Sabonis of an All-Star spot. Now, getting on to what PK said himself, he's talking about pride, and players always going out playing with pride, even during the All-Star games, and players always playing, versus the NBA where you don't get, it doesn't happen as often nowadays. Nowadays, you don't really get players playing 79, 82 games. That was commonplace back in the Jordan era, and even for Kobe Bryant before that, in the Magic Johnson, Larry Bird era. Nowadays, it's a factor of load management plays a role in it, and that's been ingrained in the NBA culture. PK Subban saying he's not a fan of it. He's not a fan of these guys sitting out constantly. Now, how I feel about it, from his point of view, I get where he's coming from. Like, look, obviously the NBA has this problem. You don't really get those players playing 70-plus games, not as often. Nowadays, you get a lot of 55, 60 games a year players. Guys sitting out during the middle of the season. LeBron James, sitting out the All-Star game. Even guys like Steph Curry and Kevin Durant, who are great players, they have that habit of sitting out certain games just for the sake of rest and load management. So if I get from PK's point of view, he feels and what he said about fans paying the tickets because they know what they're going to get. I mean, here's the thing. NBA is still going to be the bigger draw in the U.S. regardless. Regardless of where's what people want to say about the NBA product, whether they want to bitch about it. The NBA product, let's face it, is always going to be more popular in the United States regardless. Now, when it comes to what he says about people paying tickets because they know that the players are going to go out there, play, and give it their all, and that's what they want as fans. Talking about hockey fans, he's right about that from their perspective. For NBA fans, sometimes you might go to a game hoping to see a certain player play, and they don't show up and play, and that can be a ripoff for the fans that paid money to see it. So I get where PK's coming from. He's not entirely wrong with what he said. Now, some people might feel his tone was a bit harsh and that it came across as him trying to slam the NBA. And some people might view it that way. For me, I get where he was coming from, what he's trying to indicate. Trying to indicate that there's too many instances the players aren't playing and it doesn't feel like they're giving the same effort. It doesn't feel like they're playing with the same heart and pride they did during the Jordan era. There is some degree of truth to that. Now, that's not saying that there isn't any resemblance of players playing with heart and pride. It does happen, but it doesn't feel like they do it as consistently through the entire season all the way to the finals. Nowadays, it seems like players will step up their game in certain situations, but they don't do so as consistent throughout the season. Because like back in the Jordan era, you had, as much as I can't stand the man personally, Karl Malone. He usually played all the time. Michael Jordan, those guys played all the time. Even Allen Iverson, Kobe Bryant, those guys played all the time. And they gave it their all from the start of the regular season all the way to the playoffs or finals if they made it that far. You don't get that as much today. You'll still sometimes get guys like LeBron. There'll be moments he shows up. There'll be certainly days where he brings his all to it. But then there'll be days he just decides, I'm going to rest today. And that happens a lot with players. Particularly because once guys like LeBron started doing it, he who's the face of the NBA, it influences other star players to think the same way. Like, hey, if this is how the top dog of us players is leading, then I should lead my team the same way. And that subconsciously influences other players to think, I'm going to rest this one out. So that sometimes creates a problem where, fans feel like they're getting ripped off. And it doesn't feel like they're playing with as much heart. Whereas like with hockey, it seems like they usually play most of the time, as he's indicating. So there is some degree of truth to what he's saying. Now, I do think he should have elaborated a little bit more on the fact that, hey, I've seen guys like LeBron step up in the playoffs. See when they were down 3-1 in 2018 with the Cavs versus the Celtics, or see the 2016 finals. If you would have used those as examples, then illustrated the flip side, LeBron missing the All-Star game. Or I remember he missed a game in Philly against the Sixers back in early 2022, and then all of a sudden played a couple days later against the Hornets. If he would have used those as examples, then I think his point would have came across better. Because some people might interpret this as hating, which I don't think he was trying to do. So I think he should have specified just a little bit more specifically what he was trying to say. But overall, I agree with him. I understand where he's come from, and I agree with parts of what he said. So that's all I got to say about it. I get where PK Subban's coming from. There certainly is truth to what he's saying about it. With load management, players resting, it doesn't feel like at times they're playing with as much heart. But then sometimes it does. Sometimes come playoff time, you get the best out of players. Like Kyrie last year on the road to the finals. Jokic in the 23 playoff run for the Nuggets. It still happens. but it's not happening consistently throughout the season because you get players resting in load management. That's how I feel about it. So you guys comment, let me know what you think of PK Subban's comments. Also, make sure to drop a like and subscribe for more NBA and NFL related content. Also, as well, make sure to enjoy the rest of your day or night, depending on which time you're watching it. It's your boy Nicky Steez signing off. Till next time.